Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario on stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on UCY.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. Really happy to be back and alive and well on this Wednesday, June 14th, 2017. What an absolutely insane time to be alive with all this stuff going on. And as I'm sure most of our listeners are aware of, several mass shootings today, including 2 confirmed and another active shooter scenario going on somewhere here in California. I gotta check the latest on that because I haven't checked the news in about an hour and a half. I just got back to the news desk here, the Anti-Media studio, and getting back to the getting caught up on the latest of what's going on. But I'm not sure that the details are as important as the general issue here, which is that people are going around shooting people because they're upset about something. And I wrote an article today, a rare op-ed for me. I don't do too many anymore because I'm just, with all the stuff going on, with Trump in office, with the empire on the brink of collapse, or United States on the brink of major war up to and including World War III, I don't have as much time to write stuff anymore. As much as I'd like to, because I've got so many other things going on, managing our huge team of writers and creators and editors and all that stuff. But today I did write an article. I'm going to be talking about that because I feel like it gets to the root of why all these shootings happen. Because let's look at the numbers, the data, the raw statistics. The United States, out of any other country in the West, look at anyone else in Western Europe, anyone you would consider, the Western world, the NATO people, maybe exclude Turkey here, but everyone else are much more peaceful. They don't have as much violent crime. England had a rash of terror attacks in the past, month, but American on American crime is just enormous. Our violent crime rate, our murder rate, our kill rate, our mass shooting rates, gun violence are off the charts compared to everyone else in that you can compare us to. And just to excerpt from my article, whenever stuff like this happens, this is what people say. We have to ban guns, or no, we need more guns, or we need to have more cops. We need to put cops inside of schools. We need to get rid of gun-free zones. We need more gun-free zones. We need to blame right-wingers. We need to blame left-wingers. We need to say, well, we need to call, when white people do this stuff, we need to call it terrorism. We need to blame big pharma and psychotropic drugs. We need to ban Muslims and whatever else anyone could pull out of their ass to try to rationalize. Well, why is this stuff happening? Like, it's hard to understand. It really is. Why does a kid grab his parents' gun and go to his school and shoot up a bunch of people? Why does that happen? Like, it's hard to understand. It really is. Because, and I guess most people in this country, most people listening to the show for sure, we're peaceful people. We don't like hurting other people. Sure, we'll defend ourselves, and if shit hits the fan, we'll fight back. But I think most people generally are like, you know what, just, leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, and, we can do our thing, we can do our business and leave it at that. But there's no denying the fact that there are a bunch of crazy, violent mother effers in the United States. And so we're going to talk a little bit about speculating about why that happens. I want to spend less time talking about specifics because everyone's got a different take on what happened here. And of course, the mainstream media is really running that, this guy was a Bernie Sanders supporter thing down everybody's throats and trying to link the whole Bernie Sanders movement in with this crazy guy that went and shot people up. Of course, that's pretty expected because the Bernie Sanders movement, maybe not Bernie Sanders himself, but his movement, the people that voted for him are, these are anti-establishment people, progressive, maybe socialist-leaning, far left, much, much further left than the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is actually, many would say, is center-right. And then, of course, there's other people that would say that the Republican Party is on the left, of course, so it's all a matter of perspective on that. But there's no denying that the Democratic Party is very neoconservative on foreign policy. And I think that a lot of the Bernie Sanders progressive, Bernie-crats, whatever you want to call them, are much, much, much further to the left than any other group in mainstream group in the country, especially, the people that voted for Hillary Clinton, the Hillary supporters. These people are, in my opinion, are not much different than Republicans. And so this definitely does serve the purpose of demonizing the Bernie Sanders movement and stuff like that. On that note, it's just me and DB tonight, and we're going to talk about this stuff. And I got some insights that I've been working on. I've been working on these thoughts for a couple of years now, and because it is a big topic to tackle. And I don't doubt, a lot of people, whenever there's like a shooting, especially when it's like a right-wing guy that goes and shoots up a group of people, there's always that, oh, well, it's the drugs, it's the psychotropic drugs, and that's really what caused this. I don't doubt that. I think it's been shown that many, if not most, mass shooters are on some type of, drugs that are like, psychotropic drugs, or suffer from some kind of mental condition where they're on drugs and prescription drugs and stuff. And that makes sense kind of, because anybody that goes out and starts killing people, well, they probably got issues. I don't care if you're a jihadist, if you're a right-wing racist, or a left-wing militant leftist. If you're going around killing people, you probably got mental issues. Now, of course, people like to rationalize it on all sorts of different ways, and I'll be straight up. When I woke up this morning and I saw that there was a shooting and that a Congress guy got shot, I wasn't even mad. I was not mad at all. I wasn't sad or anything. I wasn't. And that's it. Maybe that's not the best way to look at this, but I just, I see it as like, man, you know what? Those guys screw us all the time. Those guys are either responsible or complicit in a massive foreign policy of, you can't really describe it in any other way but genocide against many groups in the Middle East, especially. When someone like that gets hurt, they're responsible for so much pain and suffering all around the world and around the country that it's hard to feel sad for those kind of people. But at the end of the day, it's not okay to kill other people. I don't care who they are or how bad they are. We shouldn't have to go around killing people because we disagree with them. Precisely why, and this brings up a point here. A lot of the people on the left who are my friends have been talking about this, of course, on social media today, talking about, well, this Congress guy, he took away health care from people, and, he probably supported a bunch of, foreign policy stuff. He probably voted in favor of the arms deals with Saudi Arabia and stuff. I don't doubt that at all. I haven't looked into it yet, but I don't doubt that at all. I mean, most of these guys, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, they all agree on the arms deals. In fact, it was the 5 Democrats joined with the Republicans and pushed the most recent arms deal through. Rand Paul, a Republican, tried to block the arms deal, and the Democrats ganged up and passed it through. So, on the foreign policy, on the empire and stuff, the parties are no different. They're both the same on that stuff. Obama, Trump, both the same. But that being said, it does give us a nice little lesson here on the power of the government. Look, if we're going around making excuses for why this guy got shot, and it's like, oh, well, he took away health care, and he did this and he did that, doesn't that tell us that something, it gives us a nice lesson. Don't give these motherfuckers that much power. There. I said it. I didn't want to drop the F-bomb. I know we're not supposed to do it, but sometimes you have to. These assholes don't need all that power. They shouldn't be presiding over our health care and our reproductive rights and our marriage rights. They shouldn't be dictating who we get to be in a relationship with. They shouldn't be getting to dictate who lives and who dies around the world. They shouldn't be getting to dictate the militarization of the police and the surveillance of all of our communications. They don't need all that power. And so...
And ultimately what we learned, Nick, is that even when they have all that power, they don't use it to save or help or protect. They just use it to blackmail and to put people in compromising positions. And worst of all, what they do is they know who's doing these heinous things like the trafficking rings and child abduction schemes, and they protect them, man. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, and everyone knows who's arming ISIS. Everyone knows it's Saudi Arabia, and yeah, they vote for the arms deal. They give the weapons to Saudi Arabia. But these guys aren't trying to stop terrorism. Like you said, they're not trying to protect you. They're trying to use you as cattle and take your money and take all the productiveness away from you.
I think it's really obvious, though, that what we differ from in other countries is that other countries' governments more or less consider themselves maybe the sheepdogs of the sheeple. Whereas here, I truly, truly believe the government's trying every single day to figure a way out to just wipe us all out.
They're the wolves. At least I think they are.
No, they are, man. I mean, you don't do the Tuskegee experiments on your own people. You don't do things that have already been proven to be done to your own populations unless you absolutely hate them.
Yeah. That being said, welcome to the show, DB Schwartz. What's your take on all these shootings, bro? I mean, we got at least 2, maybe 3, maybe more.
I think the UPS guy is just, it's pretty cut and dry over on your coast there, Nick. Those kind of things, when you look at the history of the guy, he had a history of mental illness. So I believe in this case, it was just somebody that snapped. Now, the other one, the shooting of the GOP congressman, from what I've been able to research, this guy came out looking like Rambo and holding off multiple cops. And if you've looked him up, I mean, he's an extremely off guy. I mean, his first daughter apparently was a foster child, and she killed herself through immolation. And I know everybody knows that's setting yourself on fire. All right, so that in itself is insane. Second foster daughter, and they gave him another one. He beat her, and she left his family. I mean, this is not a typical guy. It leads me to believe he was probably in an institution at some point. And I really, really want to know if they're going to perform an in-depth autopsy on this guy, because he literally cracked. And there's been talk of Manchurian candidates. There's been talk of neural implants in the guy because of the way he was moving and firing the gun. He looked like he was military trained, and everybody that was in the guy's life said he's never been in the military. So unless he's been getting private training on the side for years, he was moving in a way that looked programmed. So I don't want people to discount the fact that technology is a lot further along than you're probably willing to admit, and that, yes, they can uplink a human brain. Yes, they can play you like a video game if they want. If they have that in your brain, they can play you like that. That's totally done. Look it up. They do it to mice. You really don't think they can do it to people? They released they were doing it to mice. So that's my take, man. I think that it was done to create the biggest smokescreen you can imagine for this Senate Intelligence Committee. And I don't know if you heard about this, Nick, but there was some really dubious characters going into this. People that are not involved in our government going into this meeting for the Senate Intelligence Committee. That's all you have to know, man. Everybody is involved with everybody worldwide. We're getting played. They're laughing all the way to the banks they own.
So I'm looking now at this thing at Travis Air Force Base here in California. Apparently it was a false alarm, so that's good. But, I mean, also, maybe this guy's fidget spinner just stopped working, right? Maybe he's like, shit, my fidget spinner no good. I got to go kill somebody.
Maybe he dismembered his penis like the other idiot.
Yeah. It's hard to tell, man. It's hard to tell anything nowadays. There's so much disinformation, so many varying accounts. People are so quick to jump on just to swallow the mainstream narrative like a damn pill. Or there's also people who want to call everything a false flag. Got to be very, very careful and look at the evidence and see for ourselves. The biggest.
Well, does anyone know about this committee? Is it even on your radar, Nick? Because they deliberately hit it, man, and it reeks, dude. Like, things are going on behind the scenes right now that are gonna make these shootings look like peanuts. And I hate to say that, but if we get involved in a large scale conflict where people start dropping like flies in our own country because they're going to use advanced weapons on us, I don't think we're ever going to even remember these events. I think we have to treat them like they're horrible, tragic events. They're going to always be used for political purposes. There's always something wrong about them, man. They never add up. And it's truly because these people at the top are cheap and they hire incompetent morons to do these black works and wet works jobs. And these guys always screw up, just like with 9/11, just like with every other thing that you may think is a false flag. There's a good chance it was, and they screw up and leave traces, dude, and trails.
Well, I think the bigger, the big thing to look at here is not so much how or why things were done. For all we know, everything we're being told about this is completely legit. Like, he was just some crazy Bernie Sanders dude that was so pissed off because Trump was talking about repealing Obamacare that he's like, screw it. I'm old. I'm hopeless. My life's pretty much done. So whatever. I'm just gonna go shoot these guys up and go out with a bang. Who knows? Maybe that's how it went down. The bigger issue here, I think, is always how do the reactionaries take advantage of it in the government? What are they going to use this event for? Whether it's legit or not legit, not as important as what the reaction is going to be. In the case of 9/11, the Patriot Act, the war on terror, invading Iraq for no reason. These are things that happened after the fact that we should have been like, no, like, what the hell, dude? Like, I don't care what you guys say happened on 9/11. Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with it. These are the kind of things that we need to step in and say, no, we're not going to allow you guys to carry out this bullshit narrative, problem, reaction, solution, because one stupid idiot decided to get a gun and go shoot a guy. We're not going to allow it to happen. And so in other situations with terrorism and stuff, it's even more important because the terrorism stuff it's like propaganda that's been programmed so deeply inside of most people. Anyone that's a millennial or older has been so deeply embedded with this propaganda throughout a lot of their lives that anything having to do with terrorism is just, your mind goes blank and you just give the government carte blanche to do what the hell it wants. And that's exactly what is going on right now in Iraq and Syria with ISIS. You guys remember, look, in 2013, we had this radio show, and we were part of the genuine resistance that said, you know what? We're not going to go fight in Syria. We're not going to allow the U.S. government to overthrow the Syrian government. We're not going to allow it to happen. And you know what? We stopped it because people were like, yeah, we don't need to be overthrowing the Syrian government. Why? Everyone was already tired of what was going on in Iraq as it was. And then only a year later, 2014, ISIS appears out of nowhere, and it's like, okay, guys, well, we're not going to go into Syria to fight the Syrian government per se, but we're going to go into Syria anyway because we're going to fight ISIS because they're terrorists. And everyone in the country was like, oh, yeah, go for it, guys. Yeah, we trust you. Fight terrorism. Yeah. Go for it. Nobody was resisting outside of maybe us and a handful of extremely anti-war, leftists and anti-war libertarians, and maybe that was it. The mainstream Democrats, mainstream Republicans, everyone was like, oh, yeah, go ahead and let Obama go back into Iraq. In fact, the Democrats didn't even bother even believing it. They think that that Obama ended the Iraq war. They still think that. And then the whole Syria thing was kind of an afterthought. Oh, yeah, we're going to Iraq to fight ISIS, and we may have to go into Syria, by the way, but not to fight against the Syrian government. We're going to go there to fight ISIS, which was a creation of U.S. foreign policy, but that's beside the fact. Terrorism is deeply, deeply propagandized into our thinking. And those of us, especially those listening to the show tonight, that have broken out of that paradigm, kudos to you. You guys are real, you guys are the real MVPs by not believing this bullshit anti-terrorism narrative. And like I mentioned we had a great show on Monday. We had this young dude on, 19-year-old anarchist kid that really had some great thoughts and some great insight and really did give me some hope. But at the same time, I remember back when I was in high school and 9/11 happened, when I was a freshman in high school, I went to school that day and they were playing the repeat of the plane hitting the building over and over and over in every single one of my classrooms. I went to first period, second period, third period, fourth period, fifth, sixth period. Every single one had the TV on showing a replay of the plane hitting the building. That was programming. They were getting that shit stuck deep into our brains about dehumanizing Muslims, pinning it on Islam, and rationalizing the war on terror immediately. And so the issue, I think, again, is less about who was behind it and how it was done. Was there a conspiracy behind it or not? But how the reactionaries try to react to it is much more important. And so this is what we have to be aware of when it comes to what goes on with this shooting. Again, from what I can tell, the narrative is that it's an anti-progressive narrative, really, because as you guys know, there's been an ongoing battle within on the left between the Democrats and the progressive. The Democrats have been trying to co-opt the progressive movement in a very similar way that the Republicans co-opted the Tea Party, except the Democrats are having much more trouble doing it. And so now instead of capitulating and saying, you know what, we're going to go ahead and incorporate part of Bernie Sanders' ideas into the Democratic Party. No, that's not what's going on. Now they're just going ahead and they're probably going to use this attack to just say, you know what, these people are crazy as hell. They're going to try to isolate them, scare people out of the movement, and try to get them to scare them back into the Democratic Party. I don't know if it's going to work, but that kind of seems like the agenda going here. I mean, what do you think, Nick,
you remember like the immortal William Cooper? He said there's like, that problem, reaction, solution thing. Actually, they use it in a way that it's kind of almost like a historical inevitability. And everybody's heard the term, weak men create hard times create strong men create good times, and then good times create weak men. And you can see that basically since approximately the 1500s, mid-1500s, when the Renaissance kind of ramped up and the central banking figures of the Medicis and other Italian families created this fiat slave system that was based off an old Babylonian system. And trust me, they're probably descendants of those people. You had what was kind of like a shell game, a constant shell game, where we see economic downturn and social upheaval lead to a war that leads to the changes these people have been wanting to make for the last 500 years essentially. And there's been big bangs like the Napoleonic War and World War I and II, and there's been other things surrounding it, and those always lead to massive social change. Now, I totally believe that 9/11 was smaller than what it was intended. I believe that it was directly thought out to decapitate the financial system of the U.S., to crash our economy, to create another Great Depression so that we could have a World War III. And Nick, I don't know how much research you've done on 9/11, but there was a van full of explosives that was pulled over by NYPD in the Lincoln Tunnel. So those explosives were never allowed to detonate and never allowed to be planted. And why the Lincoln Tunnel? Because the Lincoln Tunnel had the fiber optic cables that went right to Wall Street, and that would have decapitated Wall Street from the rest of the U.S. Therefore, the financial system would have collapsed overnight. So what I'm trying to say is there's cycles. There's shitty times created by these dicklords. And then those shitty times create Trumps. Trump's in because it's a shitty time right now, because Obama sucked. And anybody who thinks he was good is an idiot and fell for an actor's smile. And what we've had since basically Clinton and NAFTA is a gutting of our economy top to bottom. If you're not in the service industry, you're not getting paid. There's a few people in some blue-collar jobs making a good living, but it's so rare these days that even if you have a college degree, you're still probably not going to be middle class. So that's what they've done. They've set us up for desperation. And once enough people are desperate, like this guy today, like the guy in San Francisco even maybe today, maybe his UPS job of $20 whatever an hour isn't shit in San Francisco, and he was feeling that Federal Reserve crunch like we all are. No matter how much you're making right now, it's not enough. We all know that. So I think what we need to do, Nick, I think what we all realize we need to do, we've got to scrap this whole system, and we can't let them dictate it, because they got us here on purpose. They put us in a position to enact carbon tax because they've been making us burn oil, gas, and coal for 120 years when we haven't needed to, and made us go to war for those freaking fuel sources we really haven't needed for 120 years plus since Tesla's patents were squirreled away. There's so many things people just are so clueless about, and they don't understand it. They think it's natural, these cycles, and they're not natural. We're way past caveman status. We don't need to fight. We have enough for everyone. So it's just a fallacy, man. And it gets to, I'm sure you're in the same boat as me, Nick. It's just to this point numbing. It's like, can we not all wake up and take the Second Amendment into our own hands that we actually have, unlike most of Europe, clean house, make this the utopia it could become, and then our kids will be proud of us. I mean, because right now when I look around, I don't think anybody's kids are proud of them.
Oh, man. Yeah, dude. I think we're all kind of frustrated about what's going on. Obviously, this guy, if the story is to be told how we're being told it, obviously he reached the end of the rope. And probably the guy, like you said, man, the guy in San Francisco, working at a UPS job, maybe in some places around the country, that's a pretty good job. In San Francisco, if you make $100,000 a year, you're living in poverty. Like that's a fact. Go look it up.
I know a person there making around that, Nick, and even with her and her husband working, they can't buy a house. Look, so together they're making 150. They can't buy a house.
If you live in the Bay Area and you work full time at a decent job like UPS, and you're single, you don't got family, and you don't got roommates to live with, guess what? You're homeless, dude. You can't afford a studio. Shit has gotten pretty out of touch all around the country, and people, judging by today, people are reaching the end of the rope. They're frustrated politically. They're frustrated economically. I think we're frustrated socially because we've lost touch with community and we've lost touch with one another. Everyone's sitting at home kind of isolated. A lot of people don't have many friends anymore. That sense of community is kind of dissipated here in the U.S. and it's been kind of the state has kind of crushed it through fear tactics and scaring the daylights out of everybody and looking for terrorism under every bed and thinking Russia is under behind every corner.
And what does it lead to, Nick? I think we all know what the end game is, which is you're not going to be able to survive because you're not going to be able to become part of this new virtual world economy they're going to bring about without giving them complete control of you. I mean, they already have it if you let them. If you use a cell phone and rely on it, if you rely on this tech, they've already got you. But if you could live tomorrow okay without any of it, you're still free. But what happens when things are implanted in you? What happens when things are injected in your baby and you can't say no? That's where they're going. It's not full and total control. It's annihilation, dude. Once they have you where they want you, you will not eat another meal. I hope people understand that. You will never eat another meal with money again if they get it to where they want it. And farms are illegal. Catching rainwater is illegal. You cannot actually own land in the United States because of eminent domain. So once it gets to the point where they have it all wrapped up and every event like today helps, it's over. There's nothing we can do without perishing. So that's our nexus. That's our crossroads. And it's happening faster than I thought. I thought we'd maybe have 2-3 more years, Nick. But technology, robotics, AI, all of that's advancing so exponentially, they don't need people anymore. So to save our species and ourselves, and especially for people that have kids listening and you want them to have any chance of a future, we have to reduce the amount of criminals in government, if not eliminate them. We've got to take power out of human hands that shouldn't be in human hands. And I know we've talked about this before, like using the blockchain to create ways we can vote through our cell phones and that every IP is attached to someone's social. There's ways we can get around it. We can use the technology to save ourselves, but we can't allow them to dictate it. And they're doing it, man. Every single day I look at a high-tech company that fills a position with somebody from another country. While it's great that you gave them the opportunity, they were not born here. They will not fight against the government. They're just happy to be alive and have food on their plate. And that's where it's going, man. It's just control, total control of all the high tech and making sure the people that are developing it have zero loyalty to anybody here and just want the paycheck. And it's working, man. Just like it's working like a charm.
Yeah, dude. We need to knock them back. We've allowed the government, and like I was talking about in my opening rant, the fact that this guy, this politician, is able to go around and affect so many people's lives to the point where some Bernie Sanders supporter rolled up and said, you know what, might as well just kill this guy, sacrifice my own life, I guess, as a martyr type of thing, and say, screw it, because, he's taking away health care from people who are, going to probably die because of this. And, of course, the media has exacerbated the problem where they talk about how, all these people are going to die because of, the healthcare thing and all this stuff. Maybe there's some truth to it. But the conversation is so polarized in this country that not just this dude that went and shot up the congressman today. I didn't even write his name down in my article. Who cares? Who gives a shit about his name? Aside from that, the politics have become so polarized that I was surprised that the dude went and shot up a politician and that he didn't just show up to one of the protests and start shooting at alt-right people. Or vice versa, where it's some alt-right dude showing up and picking Antifa people off from the rooftops. That's the next logical step. These guys, I don't know if you saw those weapons that were confiscated up there in Portland, where our reporter, who, the anti-media is not alt-right. Like, we are very neutrally anti-establishment when it comes to politics and stuff. You can't really say we're Antifa. You can't say we're alt-right. We're neutral anti-establishment. We shed light on the corruption on both sides of the aisle. Our reporter got jumped by Antifa, who, for all we know, who knows? Maybe they were agitators. Maybe they were cops. Who knows? But Antifa is getting the credit for this. We're at the point now where people are just getting beat up for their political views. And so I was surprised today that this guy actually went and he was actually going after congressmen, and that wasn't actually just going after some alt-right dude in the street. Because that's the direction the establishment is definitely trying to get us in, where they can get us, the young people who are of fighting age, if they can get them to polarize themselves into camps like the alt-right and Antifa or alt-left, whatever you want to call it. If they can get themselves to separate themselves and pin each other against each other, it neutralizes them. All the young fighting age males who would be, in perfect circumstances, these guys would be the revolutionary fighters. If you can get them to fight each other instead of fight you, that's ideal. That's what the establishment wants. And that's the direction that we're going in right now. It really is. Go look at any of these big events and you're going to see Antifa versus alt-right, and they're all beating each other up. And like I was saying, in Portland, the cops retrieved a bunch of weapons. I saw the photo of like the pile of weapons, bunch of bricks and knives, and even axes, machetes, and all kinds of shit. The next logical step is guns. How long until dudes from either side of the political spectrum are out there fighting a guerrilla warfare against each other? Like, how long until that starts happening? The dude today went out there and started capping off on politicians. Soon we're going to be fighting each other in the streets. I don't want to call it a civil war because I don't think it's going to be that cohesive. I don't think there's going to be just two big groups fighting against each other. Maybe it'll resemble more closely the Syrian war, which is nasty as hell, where it's just hundreds and hundreds of different factions vying for power and resources and territories.
I honestly don't think from my own research that the United States government would do much to prevent that, except for just loading up the military to protect key spots and having drones to drop a hellfire or two on large groups that pose a threat. But if we're dumb enough to do their dirty work for them and wipe each other out, especially the youngest, healthiest of us that could fight, so they can just mop up everyone left, then we deserve what we get, man. Like I said, we're at a crossroads. We can make these decisions to de-escalate. You can make the decision to talk to somebody that looks and thinks entirely different than you once a day and see if you can make a bridge, and maybe they'll think about that when things do break down and they won't radicalize. I mean, what's going on right now is organic radicalization in the U.S., but it's being co-opted against ourselves instead of the guilty parties. The guy today went about it the wrong way for the guilty party. The right way, and I don't know if we have it in us, we got to jam up D.C., and we got to jam up Denver, too, because that's where they're going to try to run away from D.C. 2. That's D.C. 2.0. We got to jam up those two things and all the major port cities with protesters to kill commerce. Because the only thing these people care about is the money. If we stop the money flow, you can be sure Trump's going to be forced to clean house by the Fortune 500 companies. I don't know what that would look like. I'm sure they would try to dupe us and tell us they were doing a bunch of stuff, and I'm not sure how we hold their feet to the fire. But once we open the violence Pandora's box, the government has been preparing for that forever. They want it. They try to push it. If we fall into it, you can expect a massive Depop event because it's going to be too damn easy for them. And then whoever's left is going to just be unbelievably oppressed by a modern technological behemoth that's basically keeping it behind a curtain right now because there's enough of us to make it too, inconvenient for them, I should say. But if we get whittled down, if the strongest of us kill each other, what is going to happen? I mean, do people think this out? China, Russia, every other major country in the world is licking their chops waiting to take everything around the world that we could never protect when we're fighting ourselves. And then what do you think is going to happen? You think the economy is bad now? Imagine what it would be like then.
Yeah, dude. It won't look pretty. It won't.
Well, most people just aren't going to survive, dude. I mean, anybody listening, you got a shot because you're maybe going to be a little bit ahead of it. But I mean, if you're out of shape, if you're old, if you're young, you're done. Who's going to protect you? I mean, parents trying to feed their children when stores run out, they're going to go out, they're going to eat it. Then the kids are at home with no food, they're going to eat it. I mean, full societal breakdown. Look at Venezuela. They're disarmed. They all share a culture. They all share a pretty, I would say, let's put it this way. Most people in Venezuela are Venezuelans, and they have a culture to back themselves up with. We're so splintered, man. Like, I could only imagine how it would go about with so many different groups that quite literally hate each other just as much as they hate the government and just as much as the government hates them. So we're in a big ball of hate and we're armed. And the only thing that's really kept that scenario from happening, Nick, is we've been exporting our poverty through war. What if we can no longer do that? What if the world says no? Fix your problems. Can we?
And that's what's happening, dude. China is while the U.S. is over here fiddling around with domestic issues and expending all of our resources on the war on terror, not making any advances, not being a traditional empire where we go, okay, you know what, we're going to lay waste to Iraq, we're going to install a brutal, government of our choosing and just jack all their shit. That's not what we're doing. We've got this fake empire where we pretend it doesn't exist, and we half-ass our empire. All that's really going on at this point, we're not going around the world taking everyone's shit, making ourselves rich. We are going around the world profiteering for a handful of companies. And mostly the American people are paying for it, and then the host countries that we're decimating are paying for it as well, equally. And it's going to the benefit of a very small handful of people. I just saw today that now the number is down to 5 people own the same amount of wealth as the bottom 50% of the rest of the world. 5 people. So those guys are literally making a killing off of the backs of everybody else and literally taking lives of people to make money. Killing, over 1 million people have died now since the war against terror. Innocent people. There's probably a lot more. Some estimates say 4 million dead. But the profiteering going on here is just obscene. It's not being shared with the people here, and the people here are hungry as hell. That's why, like you said, that's why Donald Trump got elected. He didn't get elected because things are going well. Donald Trump, he's an asshole, he's an idiot, and yeah, he's just another puppet. But he got elected because it seemed like he was offering up something a little different. Bernie Sanders got all that traction because he was saying a little something a little different. Hillary Clinton lost the election because she wasn't saying something different. And so the people here are feeling it. They're ready for a change. Obama got elected because they were looking for hope and change. Trump got elected because people on the right thought he was going to give something a little different to the status quo. And of course, the people who voted for Obama were let down. And of course, the people who voted for Trump have been let down. Because neither one of those guys have offered anything really different. In fact, Trump's foreign policy, it basically is exactly the same as Obama's, like identical. And so Trump is really not offering much different, except he's the only thing that was halfway okay about Obama. And again, this is, coming from me as a anarchist, but looking at it from a realistic standpoint. And DB, I know you agree with me on this, and I heard Jake talk about this last night. If we're going to have a government, at least have it supply us with social services. And so the only thing Trump is doing right now is cutting back social services. That's like all he's doing. The one function that our government could actually do that helps us, besides having this crazy phony war on terror and this phony empire all around the world and all this cronyism and all this profiteering and all that, the very least they could do is give us social services, free education, free healthcare, and that kind of stuff. But they don't. In fact, under Trump, they're cutting it back. And so it's just I don't know, maybe more of the lifting of the curtain that is going on under Trump. Hold on, I got a siren coming through here.
Yeah, Nick, what I think's going on is just a business decision was made. Like it was it's actually, it takes less resources and it's ultimately more profitable to not have to hide everything. And I think that's kind of what's going on with this current regime that's being put in. I mean, I've always thought that they've been hiding their advanced tech. They've been hiding the fact that we're probably not alone on this planet. They've been hiding the fact that the technology that they have is possibly hundreds of years ahead, if not even maybe more than that. And that we're sitting here in the mud fighting about healthcare premiums that could be easily paid for with just a fraction of our budget. We're wondering why our kids can't go to good schools anymore because they don't want you to, okay? They want you sick and stupid. And that's the way they've set it up. And only the very cream of the crop can even have a middle class existence anymore. So can you imagine the next generation's middle class? I mean, it's only going to get worse. Government always only gets worse until something stops it. And if nothing stops it, then you have all the totalitarian regimes around the world in a nutshell. But we can. And if we don't, we're going to be sorry we didn't. It would probably be better, Nick, if we, at this point, did anything we could to get these guys out, even if it did cost a lot of lives, because I believe that the alternative is not only even more lives lost, but the people that are left just simply are not going to have a life.
Yeah, so, we're running short on time to have a good ending. And I don't mean ending as far as, it's all over. But the show, there's the saying, the show must go on, right? But every show comes to an end. And maybe it's time that this show that they call the American Experiment, maybe it's time that it comes to an end and we start something new where we no longer have to try to dominate the rest of the world, but coexist with it. And where we don't have to try to dominate our fellow Americans, but that we coexist with them peacefully. Because right now, what goes on between, the two political parties, and it does tie in with what happened with this shooter today. Right now, these parties are so superficially opposed to each other that liberals and conservatives hate each other. They hate each other. You ever seen those bumper stickers where it's just some conservative guy smashing on liberals and stuff? Like, these guys have been programmed to hate each other, and they are the exact same people. They are the same people with the same type of needs. They need a home to live in. They need food on the table. They need clean water to drink. They need a job to pay their bills. That's all they need. And yet they think they hate each other. They think they're so different. The Antifa, the alt-right, the demographics are almost identical.
I agree, man, and I think that it's contrived and it's being manufactured. I mean, yes, there's division. Yes, we think differently. Yes, people like to go to these rallies and confront each other and fight and beat each other up. But I mean, a lot of the things that you watch on the internet, you have to say to yourself, these guys move too polished and professionally. They're They're too good at getting a ruse and a rile out of these people. We see the same actors at these horrible events crying on camera. I mean, they're obviously the same people event after event. This is all a giant stage, man. These events are real and people are really dying, but it's a drama unfolding to push an agenda of where we're just all enslaved, and it's just that simple. It's a rich man's trick. And the rich men today are richer than you could fathom. I mean, a guy like Zuckerberg, who we're on Facebook, man, the guy has untold, unfathomable power with all that raw data. And that's just the beginning of it. When you think about all the legacy banking systems where they can just zero out everything. I mean, if they wanted to create a jubilee tomorrow, Nick, and wipe everyone's debt, it wouldn't hurt them a bit. It would do nothing at all to them, period, because they own all the physical gold. So if there was a reset, they'd probably come out even better than they are now. So the fact is, these people, their whole job is just control, and the only way to do that is through fear. It's just crucially that simple. They can't allow us to have any hope. They can't even allow us, honestly, to get mad, because when you are mad, when you're angry, you can actually focus that fear into something. No. They want you hopeless and paralyzed.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. And this is why, and maybe this is just a utopian thing, but it's something we've been talking about on this show relentlessly since the moment we started doing this stuff. And, you know, DB, you and me disagree on some political stuff too. We don't agree on everything. But when you and me hang out, we have a great time, and we hang out together, and great conversation. It's not boring at all.
Well, we had totally different upbringings, and that's, you know, I'm empathetic, and I can put myself in your shoes, and I think you can do the same with me. And that's a thing that we're lacking, man. We're different. We had different upbringings. Our genetics are different. Our parents are different. Everything about our whole life experience was different. But I think if you're on a philosophical bent, you're trying to look at things logically. How do we advance and get ahead? Not just me and you, but everybody. Because if things get shitty and violent, I mean, me and you are going to suffer, and our families are going to suffer. The only people that win when things get bad are the people that prepped it, the people that made it happen, the people with bunkers and gold and food and nuclear reactors buried underground. They're ready for anything, and they want it to go to shit so that, well, they don't have to share anything with us. And I think that's really what it comes down to, man. It's just these are the greediest, most sociopathic, psychopathic, inbred bloodline that we allow them to keep ruling us. They are not even leaders because they don't come up with anything progressive to advance us as a species. They're too freaking lazy for that. They just have to hire all the scientists of the world, brain drain all the countries around the world to go work in these underground laboratories or on Wall Street where they do nothing for us. They're created into parasites when they could be massive producers for wealth and innovation and actual prosperity. So how do we free ourselves from these bonds? Cryptocurrency is the very first baby step. Solar panels, windmills. Now I'm starting to see they're creating these new things under the oceans that are basically, underwater windmills that use the currents. All this stuff it's available, man. We don't need to burn any of this fuel, but that's the control grid. That, big pharma, healthcare / sick care, and the financial system. And how do they back it up? They either scare you into submission, or they draft you into a war, or they put you in jail if you don't do what they want. Those are your three options. So I can only stress this enough. How do we break this cycle? If you can get off the grid, do it. If you have to live in a city for your job, stop using a car. See if you can get around that somehow. I mean, we've got to cut off the money train to these sickos because they accumulate so much money that now they're talking about shooting up rockets into space to go mine asteroids. Their wealth's going to be put into the quadrillions soon, and it's going to be an Elysium type of future where they're going to create a shithole on Earth, and they're going to enforce it with robotics and AI. There's nothing we're going to be able to do about it, and we've got to stop them now, man. Everything we're seeing, every event we're seeing right now is just the setup for that. I can't stress it enough.
We're at the point now. Look, the masters of old times, they needed slaves, and when it became unrealistic to have slaves, well, then they created a new slave system, which many would call the debt-based monetary systems and stuff, where you're born into debt, you work, you're in debt, you buy a house, you're in debt, you buy whatever you buy, you're in debt, and you owe it to them, and that was the way that they were doing it. But in the end, there's still upheavals, there's still revolutions, there's still unpredictable things. Human beings are unpredictable. We're crazy. We're greedy. We're selfish. Sometimes we're generous. Sometimes we have awesome moments where we do great things. But we're unpredictable, and I guess that's the big problem for the people who want to be in control of everything. And how do you control people who are too unpredictable? But we're getting to the point now where the masters before, they needed us around so we could produce wealth for them, so they could live a life of luxury at our expense. But we're getting to a point very, very, very soon where we will no longer be needed, where they'll have robots who can go and build them houses, grow them food, produce all the luxuries that they want, transport them around the world, whatever, basically do them whatever the hell they want. And the need for us will start going away. And then we start getting into, the scarier points in time where, what are they going to do with us once they don't need us anymore?
But the great thing, Nick, is we already don't need them today.
Exactly. And
we don't. Go.
That's the thing. That's the thing. You're right. We don't need them. They need us. And so we need to act with haste. The alt-right and the alt-left need to put aside their differences. We need to start working.
I know. Why don't these guys do some freaking Fight Club shit and take some buildings out? I mean, some strategic ones when no one's there. I mean, why are these fools fighting each other instead of not trying to actually create societal change?
Yeah.
I believe it's because they're so infiltrated, dude.
Why are they jumping neutral journalists and knocking out small women?
Because you're trying to tell the truth instead of one of the two sides that's all about division. Yeah, which the agitators in their ranks want, dude. The paid agitators.
If these dudes genuinely want to be tough guys and see, who's the better fighter, alt left or alt right? Well, go get a fucking ring somewhere and duke it out consensually.
Invite the cops, you damn wusses.
Don't go beating up on small women and jumping neutral journalists who aren't there for a fight. Go duke it out with somebody in your own weight class. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jesus Christ. But anyway, it's about time we put aside these differences, because if we don't act fast, we're in for a shitty time, like, to be honest. Our jobs and our usefulness are being replaced. Pretty soon, we're not going to be useful to them. We'll be replaced by robots, and that's pretty much, when that happens, what are they going to do with us? You think they want to keep people around for that? Unpredictable people who have wants and needs and have greed and have who knows what, empathy, and are capable of.
You think they want fragile construction workers when robots never get tired?
Exactly. They don't want to pay for your health care when they can just replace a couple bolts and screws every few months. Anyway, we're coming up on the end of the show. We're going to be back on Monday, but the anti-media is Monday. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back with a guest on Monday.
Like I told you, I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing, but call it a reality, cause there's no illusion.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.